It is 6:35, June 21st, 2012. The meeting of the Town of Newfane Selectboard is called to order. The first order of business is the approval of minutes. First minutes are May 31st, 2012. Motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any corrections or additions to the minutes of May 31st, 2012? That was the special meeting on the bridge, on the alternate project last year. Yeah.
Can I just pick up one little bitty grammar thing or punctuation? Page 1, we've got Charles, comma, this is just above the project list is attached. Charles, comma, it with an apostrophe.
I saw that. I actually saw that.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other corrections or additions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the passing the minutes as corrected?
I
Okay. And we can dispense with a little formality on that. The minutes of June the 7th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or additions to the minutes of June the 7th? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of June the 7th?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, aye. The June 14th hearing and items of other business of the select board come before the town on June 14th, 2012. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Second.
Is that the one you went to executive session?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the dog
He
hearing.
noted that I wasn't there.
Right. So it should do. I don't know if it's on. Is it on the minutes? Do you know?
I don't think it was.
Okay. So if it's not, then those minutes should reflect that Todd was not present at that hearing.
Right.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes with that notation?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next order.
Only carry in favor of the board member.
Well, the motion, you're correct, Shannon, thank you. The motion carries 4 votes, 1 abstention because Todd was not present. The next order of business is the road foreman's report. Todd, would you like to go ahead?
The roads are in good shape overall, except for the ones that we put some flood work on. What?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think you should.
That's just, usually we have copies and I didn't know if I was supposed to be.
There's a copy in your box, maybe?
Oh, yeah, there is a copy in your
I'm
box.
sorry, I pulled things out.
Okay.
The roads are in good shape overall, with the exception of the roads that still need to have some blood work done. We've been grading and hauling gravel on roads. We've had to haul a lot of gravel to cover up the stone that we use during mud season. So we're trying to keep the budget as close as we can. But as far as the equipment goes, the 06 Sterling has been to Patriot Truck Service for some front spring work. Had to have an air dryer replaced and had a front end line done. The F600, the old chloride truck, the starter went in that the other day. We changed that in the shop. The 416 backhoe is still having problems with the rear stabilizer. This is the 3rd time. CAT is coming down to see if they can do it again. We just spent quite a bit of money on it, so if we get a bill from CAT, we might want to hold that. The 672D, which is our grader, developed an overheating problem yesterday when grading Newfane Hill. So we pressure washed the radiator. It's still running not quite as hot, but fairly hot, so probably tomorrow guys will put a couple of thermostats in that, see if that corrects it. If not, we're going to have to get more crack down and see what's the matter with it. It only overheats going uphill, it doesn't seem to overheat otherwise, which is is not a good sign normally. As far as the Stratton Hill slide goes, Doris has found the names of who she believes is the landowner of that. Now our next step would be to write a letter to the landowner to try to get an easement to go onto their property, and then get an engineering firm to design a plan for rebuilding the site. Then it has to go out to bid, and we'll also have to fill out a grant application for the state to cover the 90% of emergency costs, I should say there. So it's in the works, but it's slowly coming along. The slide seems to have stabilized for the moment. It's not good, but it seems to have stabilized. We have several dead trees that need to be cut right off. One is a very large tree in Wildwood Acres. It is by the George Rose property, and if it comes down, it's probably going to hit his house. It's in our town right away, though. We have 3 dead trees in the Sunset Lake Road Cemetery that if they come down, like 2 white birch and a beech. If they come down, they're not going to break some headstones. So I talked to Kevin Schrader today, and he can do all the trees for around $450. And I guess I would.
That includes the first set of Wildwood Acres.
Yeah. So I would guess I'd make a motion, or somebody wants to.
When you're finished, we'll come back, because we'll probably need something on item 3 as well.
As far as flood work goes, as far as I know, we've been approved to go ahead with the replacement of the deck on bridge number 45 in Hunter Brook. Little Charles has been a little vague on that. I will have to get the bids out for that work. Adams Hill still needs gravel on the backside of Adams Hill, where we dumped all the rocks, so the trucks get through it to get the rocks, the big rocks down. And we have some river work that still needs to be done, where Hunter Brook meets the Rock River by Dick Hickey's place there. Needs to have some work done up in Hunter Brook itself to stabilize that the bank, but also to stabilize the bridges there. That bridge has some riprap work, but we can't get in there until July 1st. Dan has been working with Todd Manise on that, and I think the paperwork's here. It's just a matter of waiting until July 1st and we'll have to go out to bid. We're still working on getting the debris removal done and approved. Lori's been working with the state on some of that stuff, but it's only up to be a quarter of a mile above the bridge, which will still help us some. We've got some riprap to do on Smith Brook, way up above Pete Severance's, and by the Wiswell Hill Bridge needs a little bit of riprap work done. That work's got to go out to bid as well, but like I said, we got to wait till July 1st to get into the works. The Andy Harkness property, Fitzpatrick's finished that job, and Andy Harkness is very happy with it, so that is going to be a done deal. Things are looking up a little bit.
Excellent. Now, on the item, well, first of all, do I have a motion to accept the report?
Second.
Okay. Now, discussion. What of these, Todd, need action on our, particularly I'm looking at the Stratton Hill slide. We have to, in terms of the easement and what do we need to do?
Shannon, I guess we have to write a letter to the landowner. I don't have the lady's name. It's in my box.
But you possess it.
Yeah, Shannon has it too, I think.
Okay.
We need to write them a letter asking them permission to go on the property so we can stabilize that bank. That would be the next step. Then after that, John Alexander said we need to get a hold of an engineering firm that does soils. I don't know.
You don't know one offhand? Just
Soils?
Solid
Not
rock engineering.
SDE?
That's what I'm thinking, probably. Try them.
So we should try SDE.
Yeah, they've done quite a bit of work with us up
Yeah.
on Adams Hills.
So, do we need to complete the first? We need to get the permission.
Official letter.
So that has to happen first, and then once we have that, then we get the bids.
Well, yeah, we have to.
I'm sorry, then we get the engineering?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's number 2, and then the third is actually
Put it out to
put
bid.
it out to bid.
Now, is it possible for us to get a verbal permission to be able to go ahead? I know that somebody, there's Benedetto's on the right, and then that property owner on the left. Is it that property that is the landslide?
Yeah.
Because that landowner said if you ever need to go on there.
It's way up the hill.
Okay.
Now,
This one's.
so we read the letter, we're asking for an easement, we're really asking for permission, so we don't get into an easement, sounds like money.
No,
permission.
Just
asking for a written.
Written permit, I think, and it should be written so that we don't have problems later, and that we have it on file. Okay, so Shannon,
The state's gonna wanna see it.
can you take care of that? Do you need any assistance with that? Can you just? Okay, so Shannon will take care of that.
Because it's taking the road out.
Okay, great.
It's taking the road out.
The second thing, Todd, do you want to make a motion on the, oh, we were in the motion, let's approve your report and then come back. So further discussion on the report itself. Hearing none?
Just a question, you said you thought that the paperwork was here for the, something, this is a number 5, and then you said, we've got to do this, and the paperwork is here?
No, it said paperwork is here, and
I
it
said
said,
after July
it
1st.
said we have to, that Dan had done it, work with Todd and he's on it. But that after July 1st is the only time we get records.
I see.
He wanted cross sections done, and I assume that they're here somewhere.
Who wanted the cross sections?
Todd and he's from the agency method.
So let me put it differently. Are you tracking this yourself?
I'll work with Shannon on it. It was all part of FEMA stuff.
Okay. And if you need approval, we'll just bring it back, but otherwise you're just going to go.
That'll have to go out to bid.
Yeah, so that's okay. I do have a question about stuff going out for bid now that we don't have Dan services. I mean, we've had Dan put together these.
I hope I can get Dan back on Saturday or night.
So that's the thought, is to maybe get
That's what I'd
him,
like
okay.
And he said he would come back, so.
It probably depends on what else
Where
he's
he is,
doing,
yeah.
right? But that would certainly be, do you need, is that kind of looking too far down the road at this point, or should we have a motion saying that we would do that at the point where we get ready?
We can't, I mean, you can make a motion if you want, that's fine. Then we cover it from here on in.
Yeah, could we have a motion to,
We have another motion.
oh, you're right, thank you. So let's at first conclude this business. So could we, we're discussing the road foreman's report. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of passing of approving the road foreman's report?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Okay, and now let's go on to what kind of motion do you need? Could someone make a motion with reference to hiring Dan on a per hour basis, Dan Hull, on a per hour basis, to prepare a proposal, a request for proposal? I don't even know the correct wording
There's
of it.
two proposals. There's one for the Hunter Brook project, and the other one would be that Hunter Brook Bridge deck.
Oh, okay. So those are the two things, the Hunter Brook, and just what Todd said, and the deck on the Hunter Brook Bridge.
Can I just move, so move? Or do you
As
want me to
long
say
as
again?
Shannon is clear on what it is we're moving, I think probably okay, and if everybody in the
You
board
okay,
is clear.
Shannon?
Okay, we're just moving, I'll try to state it, we're moving that the town authorizes the hiring of Dan Hull on a per hour basis to, when the time comes, to write up, I don't know if it's called a request for proposal, what do we call it?
It's a bid.
RFP for the Hunter Brook, what do we call it?
Bridge?
This, it's not the Hunter Brook Bridge, it's the second Hunter Brook Bridge.
Right, bank stabilization and river work, I guess you call it.
Okay,
And
bank
then also the
stabilization and river.
And Bridge
And-
45.
And Bridge 45, okay.
Deck on Bridge
The deck on Bridge 45. So that, just so then it's on record. Okay, do we have a motion to that effect?
She's
So
on.
moved. Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing,
Why did we choose per hour
I,
instead of a per diem or something?
Takes it time to,
well, I did, I
Okay,
just,
I just-
it
What was
just,
in the last we
yeah,
had?
it just seems like a
You
normal.
did it by
thing.
hour?
Yeah.
Didn't he, Shannon?
What's that?
Wasn't Dan working for us by the hour when he left here?
His company billed per hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay.
Now
And we need the tree work.
Yeah, I moved that
Oh,
we,
Good.
that Todd hires Kevin Schrader to do the removal of all of the trees in the amount of no more than 400.
Well, he said it would be around 450, so I don't want to make it.
Yeah, let's not make it.
Okay, usually we do.
I know, it's.
I'll
but-
change that from, to around $450.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Todd. Since it's really connected with this, let me just bring you up to date on the issues with bridge, the Green Iron Bridge, Bridge 49. We have gone through this now. I guess this is at least the third time where the state, having essentially taken over, and there's, as I sent out the documentation to everyone, they took full responsibility for major, we have for major repairs, restoration, and full responsibility for the historically restored Bridge 49 back in the year 2000. Nevertheless, when the issue comes up, one always runs into the possibility that someone is not fully acquainted with it. We did in last year, as I also passed out, the board was presented with a document from the state that we were asked to sign, and the document basically says, among other things, that we must do the actual applying to FEMA and satisfying FEMA, but that the state is responsible for 100% of the cost. Unfortunately, there was a certain lack of clarity in that, and that meant that some state officials could contradict other state officials. But the end result is that I have received an email by the end of the day reaffirming that the state will cover 100% of the cost. So because this was the arrangement made back in 2000, and it does hold, and we do now have it.
So we have to apply to FEMA though.
We do have to pay, we most likely, because we have to get the reimbursement from FEMA. The state can't actually get the FEMA to pay them. It struck me as I have to admit, slightly Kafkaesque that, you know, the state did the work. and they are actually dispersing the money to us, but we have to do the applying, we have to pay, and then FEMA will reimburse us, and once we are reimbursed, we will give that money to the state. So
Do we have a problem now after the...
we will have to go back to the bank. We very likely will. We are very likely not to have a problem getting the loan because it is one of these guaranteed that the federal government's covering.
No, I mean, now that FEMA is closed up...
I understand that was part of the discussion, and I was assured infinite number of times that all they really need is for us to make the payment, and the state has all the paperwork, everything's perfectly in order, and that they even have a project worksheet which is kind of the cornerstone of this process, which we did not write.
Right.
It has our names on it, but we didn't write it. That they will take care of it, and that we will be 100% covered. So that's,
So the deal with that bridge is that the town has to do the maintenance on that bridge.
right.
The routine maintenance, like it keeps getting potholes, we keep putting toll patch in
Yeah,
it.
that's our.
We cut brush around it. If we
Yeah.
see a tree underneath it, we have to cut it.
Yeah,
Anything major, they take care of
exactly.
because it's a historic bridge now.
Exactly. So that was the agreement made back in 2000.
That's what they-
It's very clear in that agreement.
That's how they tried getting out of it after the flood, was that we have to do the maintenance on it. I said that's not maintenance.
Not exactly. And then, so that was the first fight. They said we had to maintain it, but it's obvious. It says that if it's, you know, restored, if it needs to be restored, it's the state's responsibility. And now that is no longer an issue. We have received confirmation in writing. I must say that thank goodness we got that additional memo from Kristen that said because that was like, okay, we've got the document right here in writing, and she took the ball and carried it from there, so we should be fine. And I will definitely inform you immediately if there's any change to that, because There's nothing, I think, that you do that can't be forced to redo the 15th time. But hopefully, that's the...
So John, what is our next step now? We've got-
Well, the ball is, actually, essentially, we have to go ahead and seek the funding, go to the bank, and Shannon has begun that process already. And we have to do that and submit the state's invoice to us. We have to pay the money, and then FEMA will reimburse us. And then when we get that, the state will give their initial 5% that they're giving for all projects, and they will give us the final 5% to make us 100% whole. And we have that on file, black and white. Okay? So that looks clear, but I don't ever believe anything ends until we see the actual money, and maybe not till after the audit comes, because I tried to insist to them we need to be sure we have every piece of documentation, because 3 years or 5 years down the line, FEMA can come back through, and I certainly don't want to explain again that this wasn't our responsibility. The state did the whole project virtually from beginning to end. They also did request, which is a proper thing, there are some expenses we may have already paid in the massive bills that have come into us, and they want to know those amounts because they will reimburse those amounts forward as well. Okay. The next item of business on the agenda is the fence on Parish Hill Road, the right-of-way permit. I don't know what this issue is.
So a fence was put in on Parish Hill Road. They did get a zoning permit. They didn't
Right,
get
we
the
had
right-of-way
discussed
permit.
it actually.
So I sent them a letter and let them know, and I sent them the permit to be filled out. And they came back in, and they don't really have the funds to apply for that permit.
How much is that?
It's $50. So now, not only have they paid for the zoning permit, it's turned into a bigger expense than they really thought. So I know in the past when this has happened, the board will sometimes waive the
We
fee.
can waive the fee.
But they can't waive the permit itself. So
Understood, understood.
it's really up to the select.
All right, so let me put it to the select board, so it's been, Shannon put it very clearly, that we do have the right to waive the fee. We obviously do not have the right to waive the permit, but we have the right to grant the permit if we so desire. So
I
I'd
would
just
like
like
the
to
motion that we waive the right-of-way permit fee, seeing as how they already paid the zoning permit fee.
Second.
And then once we get the permit request, that's when we would consider that's how that, where we consider that request as opposed to the zoning administrator.
Right, because this is a.
Town
from,
right of way.
the
So once
select
we
board.
get that, we can consider it. Okay, there's a motion on the table. Has it been seconded?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded that we waive the fee. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the Dover Road signs. A number of signs were destroyed in the thing, so everyone should have a copy now.
I'm right here.
Do I have them here? Sorry.
So I have,
Yeah,
Okay,
oh, that's
okay. These are, Todd prepared this, and Todd, why don't you speak to the,
well, I looked at this with, sure, I can't remember his name, Marcos Miller, and I went for a ride, because we had had that discussion before about signs possibly missing during the flood, and what we might be able to do up by Ben Abel's property. So he and I actually went out in his car, and he started, we went down Depot, and I'm not going to read his whole thing, but
yeah.
this is what we came up with. These are the signs that we're probably going to have to replace. Some of these signs, like the ones where we change it from up by Ben Abel's, will have to go before, I'm assuming, the sign ordinance would have to be updated. We have to have a hearing, which is
What forces that, Todd? Which
because we're changing. We have a sign ordinance in town,
Right.
and a list of where the signs are.
So some of these are changes from the existing
The only
locations,
ones that are really much of a change would be the ones by Ben Abel's property.
which is where in this?
Oh, you can ask me that.
Oh, I see it, I see it.
Who's, Ben April's property?
That one where the real estate agent came in and said he wanted to change the.
Oh, the
25.
Rankin's place?
Yeah.
And what needs to be changed?
Just to add a-
Start here. A new 35 mile an hour sign, 24 by 30 sign will be placed with Ben Abel's property. Move the 45 mile an hour sign down the road by the new band rail and put it behind the band rail. That would slow traffic down by his house. Then going farther up, you would place 45 mile an hour signs every 3/4 of a mile. Then coming back,
Doesn't that seem like a lot of signs?
he said that's what the standard is.
Is it?
Yeah, he said otherwise you can't enforce it.
Okay.
Then coming back, you would be down by Dave D'Agostino's, you would need a 45 mile an hour, 30 by 40. Just west of the Stratton Hill intersection, you need to reduce the speed limit at 35. And then approximately 700 feet beyond Stratton Hill, then you start slowing traffic down well before Ben Abel's, and then you got to change. You need a 35 mile an hour sign where the 25 mile an hour sign is now. It's just, if you read it, it makes sense. But
So there are a few that are changes, is that right?
mainly it's right by Ben Abel's.
That same spot, where,
Yeah.
where essentially it looks like what they're saying is, you know, that what we had talked about at some point in terms of having a warning that
Right.
thinks the speed is going down.
Yeah, that's so abrupt.
That's what he was saying, go from 45, you should go to 35 and then drop it down to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then keep it 25 to the bridge that they're working on now by the South Newfane store.
Uh-huh.
So, he said to put it to 25 in front of that. I asked him about keeping it 25 beyond Ben Abel's, and he said it's not practical to
Mm-hmm.
do that. So,
That's a bit of a change.
yeah.
So we would have to sort of, how does a hearing, if we would have to warn a hearing, could we warn it as, say, a 6 o'clock meeting of this, before this
You
board?
probably warned it at 6:15. so somebody said show
6:15,
up.
right. So
Basically, you're just letting the public know that you're going to
Right.
change a few signs, but we have to talk.
can we
about that.
warn it at 6:30? I mean, in other words, whether we don't need to change our time, just warn that will include this in,
It
as
will be
part of
part
this.
Is that legal, Shannon? I don't know if it's legal or not.
Yeah,
Yes, it
let's
is.
ask. Do you know, Sharon, or do I need to check on that?
Putting the sign.
You know, once we've been able, we need to have a hearing, because we're changing the sign orders, but can't we just do it at the regular meeting instead of having a special meeting for it? Or do we have to warn it as a special meeting?
You have to warn it as a special meeting, but there's nothing saying that we can't have it during our regular.
Like,
That we could have it at 6:30 and
Not
adjourn
to our regular
the,
at
and then go on to the regular at 7. let's say.
Yeah, because it's in the traffic
6:25.
ordinance. where
Why
the
not
signs
6:25?
Yeah.
are. Or that.
Well, it's just,
You know,
It just,
It's not hard to do, it's just.
okay, thank you. All right, let's, so what, we needed in some form of motion. We do have a set of recommendations that essentially comes to us from Marcos Miller, from Todd. Do you, Todd, recommend having talked with this guy and got this set of changes?
yes.
And in some cases, let me ask you a second question. There is cost involved here, correct?
Oh, yeah.
How does that, do we have an estimate of the cost?
No,
Do we have,
I'd have to figure out which signs are already there, then which ones weren't there, and get a list of those signs, probably put them out to.
we actually have to set them, it's big enough, we
Probably should.
we should probably set them to bid. Okay.
So some of these maybe are already there?
Right.
Oh,
it's just
okay.
a replacement.
Some of them are in bad shape or whatever. He looked at them and said, you know, what signs. But some of them are already there, most of them, a great majority are already there in our ordinances. But the physical signs are not there.
Isn't there?
They're not, most of these do not in any way change the ordinance.
There's one sign by Jack, coming into Jack Door's corner, where it says truck centering, that's not part of the ordinance. Yeah, that can change.
Uh-huh.
Which
So
would be
there,
in the
That's
hearing.
a lot of, how many, how much do the signs cost?
I'm just trying to think whether we should kind of take this from its current form and put it into a, this is what we're warning, this is, you know, and kind of break it into, and this is what we need to get estimates on a cost bid for. Yeah,
Oh, actually,
right. It seems like it's not immediately, how urgent do you feel it is, Tom, or anyone else on the board?
It's not real urgent, I don't think. I mean, we've got time to work on it.
hold on a minute. Would it be urgent though? I mean, we're switching over, we've got a new speed thing. they can't actually enforce the speed
It
ordinance.
can't be
without it,
enforced, no.
Certain places, yeah.
Right? Okay.
I mean, we did go over that with them.
They
too.
can't
Tell
be
them.
enforced without both the speed ordinance and the signage.
Right.
Right. We probably ought to let
Next
the
meeting.
sheriff know at least when he begins, hey, we're not quite
Right.
ready yet.
Yeah.
But this could cost $5,000.
I wouldn't dare tell you one way or the other without, because they're just supposed to be high intensity signs now, which are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We have to get a list to put it out.
if,
see what-
now the question is, Todd, do you feel, could you think you could put this into that kind of form of, these are the changes, or do you want to, could you work with Shannon
Yeah, I
to
can
do that?
Shannon might do that.
Is- Do you need help from another member of the board, or do you feel you and Shannon should just handle it? Okay, so if that's, I don't know if we need even a motion to ask you to do that, I don't think we do. So if you would do that, that would be great. Okay. The next we come to,
Can I just do two other signs that weren't the road ones? Or should that come up in new business?
I think I would just say if you could just talk to Todd and just say, are they new signs or new ordinances?
But they're not new signs, but they're signs that nobody can read. So the Baker Brook, that truck entering, when I went up Baker Brook the other day, if I'm coming up there, that sign still, somebody could go over the Baker Brook Road and not see all trucks go up to Beagleston. And then the cross street, I was going up West Street and this big kind of moving van came and, you know, the don't enter is right in between that one and this, you know, and you would never have seen you can't enter that. So it's just the placement of the sign.
They put in when they redid the sidewalks.
It's the state did that.
Right.
Well,
Oh,
it's
everybody, that one-way sign out on West Street, people think that it's one-way going towards 30th.
Right.
Anyway,
It's absurd.
So those
Um,
two, Todd could take care of the one on Baker Brook, and I think we're still clear
Right.
on the
The other we really need to address
Yep.
separately. Okay? Thank you. Okay, moving forward, scheduled members of the public. Dave, you want to talk to us? David Moore is here to talk to us about our emergency management procedure.
Chris, can we grab that chair up and right there? I mean, Carol? Sorry. You guys here? Can you listen?
Yeah.
careful now.
Pull your chairs up closer.
They're good enough to print copies of these, but they're not all in color.
Oh,
And the color that is,
I'll take the black and white.
the color's a nice one to have because
I have a color one at the firehouse, so if you want to know.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you as much information as you want within the limits of my wisdom, or give you a quick run through. This is the basic emergency operations plan. It is required by the state. Unfortunately, a lot of towns are lax in keeping these up. And so a year ago, we were one of 8 towns in Wyndham County that had a certified, accepted emergency operation plan. And it was probably my main tool during the flood, Irene, and it worked very well for me. I'm not sure if anybody else involved in the operation really didn't even know it existed. But
Well, I think, David, I just want to say that the town is extremely appreciative of what was done. I think that while there may be some who don't know, I think most of us do know that a superb job was done in handling the emergency.
well, it's not just my work. We've got a committee Todd's on it, Jay Wilson's on it, Craig Rickard's on it, Steve Jones is on it.
Yes.
And we, at this point, early on, the format changed every year. And so we have to constantly be building. For the last few years, it's stayed pretty much the same. And basically, we just update the information that needs to be updated. But the way this works, basically, starting at page 1, is I'm here to tell you what we have, and then I need the select board to approve it. When it's approved, Shannon will scan it to Dinah Reed at Wyndham Regional, and she will put it through to the state. That should come back okay and accepted.
Great.
So that's the top of the page. That's the approval date, and we would need the signature of John.
Okay.
All right. Moving down the page, you've got emergency steps. Once we determine that we want to go to the state for assistance, and it doesn't have to necessarily be cash, it can be help from the National Guard or whatever, we have to go through the 12 steps that are basically listed here. We have to establish an incident command structure, and that requires people that are trained in ICS, and most of the fire department has had that training. It's available to you folks if you want it at various times through the year. I would alert emergency management or BEM and tell them that we've got an incident. And we do that probably more often than anybody realizes. If we have a major power outage, and it looks like the power outage is going to be for an extended length of time, we typically will put the emergency operations center in place. Typically it would be, we've got a couple sites, but typically it's Newburgh Fire Station, and we would open the fire station as a warming center in the winter, whatever the need might be. And we would notify BEM that we've done that. Once they receive that notification, they wait basically for us to upgrade the incident or for other calls from other towns to come in. And they're trying to establish how big the incident is, and is this going to require funding, that type of thing. So that's the way they track what's going on. As I said, we would activate our emergency operations center. If it was a big enough incident, we have to utilize the delegation of authority. We'll get to that real soon on this paper. Contact the shelter coordinator. At this point, that kind of falls under my hat a little bit, but hopefully we will find somebody that will take that on as their full-time goal. Expand the ICS structure. Again, depending how big the incident is, we start adding people that do certain jobs. Determine if additional operational shift staffing is needed. We were fortunate during Irene, we were open for 9 days, but I was able to shut the EOC down in the evening hours. All of those days, I went home and got my sleep, and I was able to get back at it usually around 8 o'clock in the morning. So we didn't really have to add any coverage on shift, but we are prepared to do that when it comes to that. Part of what we have to do is conduct a damage assessment. That is usually left up to Todd or Steve Jones and the other folks that are with the fire department in the chief position and Todd being road foreman, they have the best insight in what's going on. And they would report back to me. We document these emergency repairs that are going on. As we go further in here, you're going to find that they have places for that documentation to take place. We would conduct the repairs. Again, that gets into a money situation, and that would fall back on you folks to make decisions with that. And then the other thing that we're supposed to do is an after-action review and develop improvements. That gets, that becomes more involved than it sounds on when you read that sentence, because basically it's getting information from the select board, it's getting information from the two fire departments and from people of the town, and then you get involved with the LAPC and they want to know, well, they want to share information from other towns, and basically we build on that, so that tracking gets very, very involved. Moving along, anything that's in green is information that should be green. Should be the blank should be filled in, and that information should be done.
Could I just ask you before you move on to the after-action review, who is responsible for that?
Typically that falls on my shoulders to at least get information from the various players, and I carry it forward to the LPC.
And are you in the process of doing that, and will you need...
Basically, we're done.
You're done. So you've collected the information you need.
Yeah.
So then you'll write something up and pass it on? How does this work?
Do we ever see?
I've not written anything up as far as what happened where, but basically that information has been carried to the LNPC.
So it's by verbal?
Right. It's all been verbal. And I believe, and I can check, but I believe the LNPC probably has this documented, and we can
What does
pull
LAPC
information
stand
back
for?
to it.
LAPC stands for?
That's the local emergency planning group for Wyndham Regional.
And then what about the improvement plan? How does that happen, or is that part of the same thing?
The improvement plan basically comes down to if we're starting with nothing, everything becomes an improvement for one thing. But for another, certain things have been done along the Rock River with rip wrapping and that is an improvement. And that's a listed improvement because it didn't exist before. So that's basically where we stand with that. If there was something that somebody noticed, now a few years ago we did some work to the Smith Brook right here. We did rip wrapping out there because that was a constant problem. Those things are noted, but anytime you get involved with a waterway, it becomes a real problem. And it basically, I've gone to Waterbury, to DEM, to the people. Smith Brook is a prime example, and they guided me through a quick process, and they said if we wanted to go for a big grant, first, don't plan on it ever happening. Second, you're going to put in years of work to ever get into the streams and do any large project. So basically, any improvements that would go beyond what's already been done would have to be, typically in most towns, if somebody came and said, well, we need to increase the culvert size for 5 culverts. Well, there are grants available that we could apply for and write, and we have a fairly good shot at getting something like that. If you want, again, to do rip wrapping in a river, that's a whole lot more
other
difficult
animal.
challenge.
What about improvement, are there any things in terms of improving process? Are you also asked to sort of, you know,
Well,
to
that's part of
consider
the
what-
after action thing,
Right.
is, you know, what went right, what went wrong. To be really honest with you, from where I stand and the job that I did for the town at that point, I was pleased. I mean, you have to understand that my job is not to negotiate with FEMA. It's to get FEMA here. Once they're here, then anything money-wise or that type of thing, that's out of my jurisdiction, out of my.
So as far as you don't see a need in this case for a different plan from what we've had? in
No,
terms of-
but I mean, like I say, we sat together. Matter of fact, we had a meeting in Newbrook where everyone in the county was invited, and we had a pretty good turnout. And people could lay their pros and cons down, and for the most part, I mean, was there no problems? Absolutely
That
not.
would be-
There were problems.
That would be
But was,
a miracle.
you know, did everything go pretty well with the plan? Yeah, it did. I
It
mean,
certainly is what we've heard here. You know, so that certainly nothing has come to the select board to say, how did this happen, and how could it ever happen? What are you doing to avoid happening again? Nothing of that sort surfaced to the select board, which I think is a tribute to how well the emergency was handled.
moving
Okay,
along.
go ahead.
All right. On the first page again, down under the green, this is points of contact. This is points of contact for other folks, particularly Vermont Emergency Management. You, John, Todd, and myself. Now, part of what, I think it's under this column, part of what this is if it became necessary to spend some money in an emergency, we have the ability to reasonably spend. And I'm a little uncomfortable in my name being there, but I know why it is there. And basically, I'm not going to make that decision if there's any possible way not to, but they do want the emergency management, their emergency manager to have some ability if called upon. Moving on to the second page, this is red. This stuff basically happens when the emergency is put into place. We've got the command center up, we've got an incident commander, and basically we log times and keep the notified. All that just filters down through all these different columns. I'm not going to go over them step by
Right,
step.
a lot of it's self-explanatory when you look at it.
And the next thing is really, okay, delegation of authority. John, Todd, and myself, we would have the ability to move some things forward in a timely manner if need be. Shelters. We have 3 shelters in town. The fire station, Newburgh Station, we have town garage, and we have the elementary school. There, the fire station is the only one that could be used as an overnight shelter. The others, guess we could use the school. The school doesn't have a generator. That's an issue. Typically, and we found this in Irene, we had, I think we had 9 people that signed into our shelter. And by 8 o'clock that night, everybody had found a better place to be than a fire station. And that's what you're going to find. I mean, if there's any way out, people are going to take it.
Now, when you say it's a problem that there's no generator, and, I mean, in other words, we're talking about the emergencies we've had so far, but you could have a different kind of emergency where you really did need people to stay overnight in sizable numbers. Are you recommending that something be done in terms of that, or is there any plan to deal with that in any
I
way?
thought there was some money or something for generators.
That's true. There was some money for generators if you wanted to pursue it, but you need the right people pursuing it. In other words, I can't pursue it for the school. So that would be a school request. The church over here, I guess, is willing to be used as a shelter as well, but again, no generator.
We do have generator now. We do have generator now.
Which is the Newfane congregation? Is it worth considering putting them on this list, or is it just enough?
Till they actually give us an up and running.
Okay, but
Could
you follow up on just to
Right.
see if because you could have an emergency where you really need it.
Can I ask, back on page 2, about alert the general population and evacuate as needed? So, the method of alert is the fire department does door to door?
And radio. We would go to WTSA and we have emergency numbers for them. We can get them when no one else probably can. And the door-to-door and telephoning, it falls under the door-to-door. And basically, we have a list of people that are elderly and handicapped that we keep on file. And it needs, probably we'll update it next spring because it's constantly changing.
Right.
And we have used that on 2 different occasions. And the good part about using it is these people now start to know that we mean it, we're going to do it, we are using it, it does work. And we'll put a couple of guys in the station, as long as they have phone service, phoning these people and doing wellness checks over the phone. That's, and oftentimes the state police get involved with this as well on doing wellness checks. So there's part of what impresses me with the emergency management is, speaking for myself, there was so much that I didn't know and so much support available throughout the state that you can almost throw out any kind of emergency that you want to throw out. And when it gets bigger than what we can take care of in our own community, and that's the secret, every community likes to take care of themselves, and we do a pretty good job for the most part. But when it gets bigger than that, it's amazing to me what's available for us once we make the phone call. And it's basically one call to VM and say, we've got to have whatever it may be. Now, Irene was a huge statewide incident. A lot of things got depleted, so it really came down to the towns that were heard first, called first, and got received the assistance first. So the only thing that we kind of came in late on was getting the National Guard to chase some of our back roads, but we found other people that could do it and hired back a number of people from the fire department went on four-wheelers and our mountain bikers that assisted us. So,
Is that what you mean by chase? You just say chase the tractors?
I guess I
No, I was just trying to get the
Oh.
meaning of that, but that's okay. In other words, check.
Right.
Back checks on.
Does that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, you're going to come to page 4. Another green is high-risk population list. And we on the committee felt that our schools were probably our #1 high-risk population area. We don't really have in our community nursing homes and the medical equipment dependent folks and handicapped residents are not listed. People wouldn't let us list them anyway, but we do have a list. We do have the ability to use those people.
Now, with that list, Timpson Hill School, preschool, would that be on that list?
Well, we've discussed that.
I mean, they're higher up on a hill, for sure, but what happens in a snowstorm?
We didn't consider the numbers, #1, big enough to really fit this category. I could, it's something that falls on the opinion of people if you think it should be added.
When you say there's not enough, how many students do they have at the school?
What's that?
How many students do they have at Timpson Hill, do you happen to know?
20 maybe? 20? As many?
20.
15, 20?
I was figuring less than 20, but
I don't know.
maybe 20.
I don't know, does anyone on the board have are you asking the board for how it's feeling about
Oh,
whether
yeah.
they should be included?
Well, in this case, sure.
I mean, does anybody have an opinion on that subject?
You've got 20 little kids, they're, and teachers.
Well, it's like a daycare
Yeah,
center.
that's
or
what
I
whatever.
guess my feeling would be
Yeah.
you err on the side of including them.
Sure. Check it out.
You can add that in. Going on, high hazard vulnerable sites.
Our whole town.
Historically, Smith Brook is one, Baker Brook is one, Jones Hill Road and Dam, and Cushing Flats. And this year we added Dover Road from the Green Iron Bridge to the covered bridge.
Well, we did suffer some pretty severe damage on the other side, but I suppose in practice, it doesn't make it.
And that's
going to go where the problem is.
That's where we're at with this, is with everything that's been done, and historically, well, I mean, everything's geared to the 100-year storm.
Mhm.
To a certain extent, I find that a little ridiculous. The 100-year storm could happen twice.
They're right, they
You
could.
know,
Yeah,
Right.
that means it's 1%.
right. So the bottom line of it is, if we got another 100-year storm,
But
theoretically,
it
we
doesn't
could
have an
prove.
effect. My understanding is, I mean, it's just because it's not on this list of, it's just given, where the spots we know.
The ones that we have continually had problems.
Right, so,
Without a major deal. I mean, Smith Brook, every time it rains out there, it comes over the bank somewhere.
yeah, right. So, I mean, but if there were
We
problems,
printed in
it doesn't limit us that something is on or not on there.
We discussed quite a while whether we were going to add the Green Iron Bridge to covered bridge, because historically that hasn't
Mhm.
been a big issue,
But this time it was, and next time it might be a different one.
the next page, if you really want to
It's
sit
okay.
down and go through it,
Yeah,
you can,
I
but
think-
basically it's more for the people that are trying to manage the situation. Who do you go to? Who's a primary? Who's a secondary? Then you've got the different type of incidents you might have, and again, we're dealing with who's the primary, who's the secondary. The emergency contact list, that one is important. And basically we've got the EMD, myself.
Yeah, an open slot. EM coordinator.
Yeah.
Is that, I see that's empty at the moment.
What's that?
The second line, the EM coordinator.
It's all a matter of whatever terminology you want to pick.
So we don't have someone who fits that job, but it's not.
Basically, when I started, I was the coordinator, and then all of a sudden I became the director. So.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, the road crew is Todd Molly.
I don't think you need to actually, we
Okay.
can see this here.
Very good. Any of the key players should be on there. Then,
I'm giving you my correct phone
okay.
Yeah, I'd give you my cell phone if it doesn't actually ring on here.
Moving on to page 11. These are basically phone numbers of people who would assist us, whether it be another town, asking them to help us with road crew help. We have fire departments listed as well, backup EMS folks, tower companies, phone companies.
This also is very clear. We can move on to the ICS.
All right, the ICS, again, if you want to go through it, we can.
I don't, unless other
Can we-
members of the
yeah.
board feel, I think that they'll read it, and I think, I must want to commend you. I think it's a really clear document with what the information that really needs to be there. I don't know if others.
Just to fill in the blanks quickly on all the remaining pages. Basically everything else from 12 to
13.
12 to 20. 12 to 20 is worksheets for the incident.
I see. Once it happens, already.
Now, with that, and this has not changed, my knowledge has not changed, that Rescue Inc. has an addendum that they add to this plan so that when we send it in the state has the rescue folks in place and what their mode of operation will be. During Irene, the state police were first rate. I can't say enough great about them. They were there after the first day. I saw a representative every single day. Mark Considine from Rescue was there almost every day, and if he wasn't, one of his people would be. So, just first rate.
Terrific.
So, I guess basically it's a matter of if you folks will approve this, get a signature and pass it on to Shannon, and she can get that.
Could you get us a copy also just of the rescue document so we have that on file? Yeah. Great.
Make a motion that we approve the basic emergency operations plan. It says 2009, but it's 2012.
Well, I think that's the version of the form, not of the.
Oh, second.
Wait, with an addition for the Tinson Hill School on the form?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Dave.
Well,
We
I
really
got one more
appreciate it.
thing.
Okay. No, that was it. That's all.
I won't bother you again, but
no more emergencies, Dave. We can't handle these floods and all that. You gotta stop.
I want the town to realize that I take my job really seriously, and the state has 2 levels of EMD, and this past week I got certified.
Let that be reflected in our records. Okay, thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
The next order of business is Chris Streeper, Rock River Revival.
Just the beach here.
Well, I only have 1 page compared to Dave's 9 or 10.
Now, show it to us. There's a camera.
Cameraman, Rich.
Zoom in.
Chris, I don't want to be, we do have a lot of work to accomplish tonight.
Zip right out. You all know I'm here to talk about the parade.
Thank you.
And it's interesting that I'm coming after David Moore because this is equally his idea as well as mine. Right, David?
What's that?
I said the parade is equally your idea.
Ah,
He
no.
says.
He denies everything.
Denies it, right. Well, I don't think you got it, actually, go ahead. So the Rock River Revival Parade, I was here a couple of weeks ago and sort of a first pass of an okay, but I've done a lot of work with, working with Ted Colligan, who's great. Because Ted is a guy who organized the 4th of July parade in Wardsboro for many years and the Heritage Festival, so he really knows about this stuff, so he's been terrific to work with. So here's a parade route in red. We go pretty much from the South Newfane Schoolhouse to the Williamsville Hall. We'd actually start a little below the schoolhouse, Bud Bergman's field where the former Inn at South Newfane was. He's letting us use the field, and the people who now own the inn are letting us use the field for parking. So that's where we would gather all the people who are going to lead the parade, the bands, the marchers. We would start there. We go down to the rubble area, that's what I call it, the big washout area. That's a big open spot there, and what we're planning is that would be a perfect place for things like floats, trucks, bigger, if the firemen, fire trucks, they could pull in there, because they could park there, turn around there. So we have sort of 2 places where people start. The first people start up by the schoolhouse with the marching bands and marchers, and then as we come down the road, the bigger things can jump in there. And we're going to the Williamsville Hall. There's 2 areas that I marked in shaded blue that show little red dots to them. The Buddhist Center and the Tinson Hill School would be places where trucks could turn around, pull in, turn around. So here's the big question for you guys. Ted and I worked on this for hours the other night, trying to figure out how to do a road closure on one end, a road closure on the other end, how you communicate, letting some traffic through, holding back other traffic. One of the problems is 2-way walkie-talkies won't work this distance, and cell phones don't work in our area. Cell phones don't work. So our request would be, would it be possible to completely close Dover Road for 1 hour from noon to 1 o'clock on the 26th, August 26th, on Sunday?
Just Sunday.
Just Sunday. Yeah, for
We
1
don't
hour.
control that totally, do we?
Federal highway, so I don't.
I don't think we can because it's a connecting highway.
You might be able to hold up some breaking started and have a deputy with his cruiser follow you down through so the traffic stays behind him all the way down through, something like that. I mean, I'm sure we can legally close that road.
So why?
Or send it for repairs, one of them.
Why not just do that 1 lane closure, put them over parish?
Well, because we work trying to really picture what that would be. As you're letting cars come in from Grimes Hill Depot Road, letting them come so that they can go over Baker Brook, you have the parade approaching, you know, there's no way you really can communicate. You can't see up the road very far, and there's no way, there's no walkie-talkie that would reach that distance. And
Well, very
someone-
likely closing one lane has the same issues as terms of state highway as closing both lanes.
Although
You'd
we-
still have to, still have to do something with the state accepts, I would think.
I
don't know.
talked
I
to
would
Bart
think.
Pickering, and he said
that-
one way was fine.
Who is Mark Pickering?
With V-Trans.
He's the one that was up to Stratton's sliding over here.
Oh, okay, oh, okay. With John Alexander. Oh, okay, I mean, but it doesn't, I see your problem. It's the two-way traffic is the problem.
Right, right.
Because if you can't, if you don't have a normal situation, you have a flag person who says, okay, now you
Right,
go, you
right,
wait.
Right,
But if you can't communicate,
right.
I
mean, we did.
what if it were that the cruiser followed the parade? That does mean traffic is seriously slowed to a walk for that
Yeah.
period.
Well, at that point, you just could put them up over Parish Hill and down Baker Brook,
Yeah.
but, you know, what we figured is the longest that we have to stop traffic would be, say, 20 minutes, in either of those places.
They certainly have, I can swear that they stop traffic on the work on the bridge for longer than 20 minutes sometimes. On the bridge for 14. Yeah, but I don't know. What do people think?
Are there interim spots where you can have walkie-talkies? In other words, you
I
have
don't know,
one here,
maybe-
one here, up to there, to...
But I mean, that becomes a whole huge logistics thing. I wonder if you could investigate, there are two different, one way to look at this is, we can say it is or isn't okay as far as the town, and you can check, we can check in terms of the state, whether there are laws about what you can and cannot do. Obviously, it does happen that there are closures, but I don't know the legality of it.
I mean, we could, there is a detour that.
I understand, there's definitely the option. That
No,
you
I
guys
don't
would-
mean just this one round. I
Oh.
was thinking if we were allowed to close the road completely, it's a long way around, but it's what you'd have to do would be to go up South Wardsboro Road, North Road and East Dover, and then back down Dover Road for that hour.
But you really, it's really, from very shortly after the beginning until very, very much just a couple minutes at the end, you still have your Parish Hill Baker Brook. You could use the Parish Hill Baker Brook
You
as your.
do, but you've got cars coming in both ways. I mean, this is what we were trying to work out the other night. You're holding up traffic here, by the Arch Bridge. So you've got cars coming over here that are now coming onto this road, then you got all these cars backed up, so you've got to have somebody here.
No,
telling
I'm
them-
saying something different.
Okay.
If you had a detour, Baker Brook, as we did for when the bridge was made,
Uh,
the covered bridge was put in. The only time that doesn't work is very briefly in this process, right?
Well, yeah, except that you've got cars trying to come from Depot Road and Grimes Hill Road who want to go west. So you're holding them back here while you're allowing these people to.
No, I'm not allowing, you're misunderstanding
Okay,
the question. I'm just saying, why are you holding anybody until the very last minute? The first, let me pose it to you differently. Suppose you started on this side of Parish Hill and ended on that side of Baker Brook.
Uh-huh.
Then you have the shorter detour. In other words, I'm trying to say, if you have to go to the state, and if we have to decide,
Well, I think this
It's
is not just state, it's federal.
or it's a federal connector, I don't know the rules altogether. But what I'm saying as far as the town is looking at, it seems a simpler detour if basically what you're saying is you're going to close this little stretch for 5 minutes, you're going to close this little stretch for 5 minutes, but otherwise it's a detour.
Except it wouldn't be 5 minutes. I mean, when we started really working it out, it might take 15 minutes to get this whole slew of people sort of on the road and going. So in the last
So it's
one.
15 minutes, that would be fine.
So you're holding cars back here, so saying you can't go,
Yeah,
you can't
right.
go, you can't go.
Because I don't see
Until
that,
they
you
move.
know, even from, this is a, as you know, a well-traveled road, and it's, if you're gonna say close it, period, they just have to wait or take a, I don't even know how long a detour
Well,
that's.
it's about a 20-mile detour
You know, that's.
to go up, and you have to go through Newfane.
I don't,
Probably check, you might wanna check with, we contracted with the sheriff's department, get a hold of Keith Clark,
Yeah.
show him this,
Yeah.
and ask him
yeah,
how he would go about
Right.
detouring traffic.
that's a good
Because by
idea.
then
That's a
we
good
do
idea.
have our.
Yeah, we have a contract with them, right? But
Right.
then
For
would we have
next
to
year,
pay
for
them-
next year, for next
Starting in
year.
July.
Starting in July. But would we have to pay them additional money for
Yeah.
I mean, we pay them for any time we use them, right? So
If
I
they're-
don't know how.
If you ask him to donate it, I can't say whether he will or not, he might, but he could,
Well,
let's
it's a
look at this.
He can
contracted
advise
service.
you. He
It's
can-
not, this is not something, unless, I don't know if we've made a motion on this, but is this a whole town thing where this?
No,
only-
it's not on the table yet that they're not asking us
Oh.
to pay for that, at least yet.
But, I mean,
But-
as a contracted service, yes, they would do that, just like they would work on a specific
Right.
road job and
Right,
they
right.
contract and say how
Ask
much
him
it
how
is.
much it would be, then
Yeah,
But Todd's
go to the
really,
Williamsville
yeah.
Hall on a Friday night and have a dinner and a movie and take that money in.
And what Todd's saying, first of all, is talk to them about, get their advice, because,
Right.
in other words,
Okay.
this is, so it looks like a lot of thought has gone into it, but it looks like there's still some question marks, and we'd like to get some answers before we kind of get hot and heavy about, is
The
this
next
right?
step would be go see Keith.
Yeah, Keith sounds like a really good
Give him
idea.
your proposal, ask him how you go about it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea.
Because, you know, I really kind of want to start moving forward with
Sure.
really promoting this thing, because everybody's asking about it, and I keep sort of holding back until I get these
Yeah, you need
pieces
to
in
get
place,
the
so I can
ducks in
say,
a row is
we're
what's gonna
starting
happen.
at the schoolhouse and we're going to
Right.
the hall,
Right.
you know,
And
and
you
the
can
original.
say, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you can. It'll get worked out one way or the other.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say, okay. We also changed the time,
Well,
so
wait,
originally we were
wait.
saying,
Be careful here. Just understand that was Gloria's opinion. The board has not made any commentary as a board, other than there is a consensus that you should get some additional advice and come back to us. I don't want to have the implication, maybe a perfectly good statement, but as a board, we need to, these details are important. In other words, you have a responsibility to make sure that, you know, I mean, to be personal about it for a moment, I was trying to meet the Commissioner of Tourism in Newfane, and because the bridge work was going on, and they said, oh, there's like 10 minutes, I'm now a half an hour late to a meeting that was important. And Dover Road is a federal connector highway, we can't be glib about it.
No, I know that.
So you need some additional info, and then once we know, then we as a board can say, yes, and if you need from us they'd say, well, we need to hear from the town first, you can come back to us and say, we need to hear from the town. But we need to, I think if he gets from Keith, you come up with a plan, this is the least inconvenience to the least people, this is the best plan, and this is how it could be handled, and this is you know, you guys would then know what the cost would be from the sheriff's department. Then you could come back and say, okay, that will work for us.
do you know what they charge, like $50 an hour or something?
They're
Said
approximate.
45.
Yeah, that
Well,
sounds
I,
right.
you know, I don't imagine the town, would want to take that out of the budget, so maybe that's something we can just,
We can see, you know, but you can think about whether you want to ask the town or not. It's not in the town's budget, so we have to be thoughtful about it.
It seemed to when I talked to Mark Pickering and even John Alexander about, did we need to get permission, et cetera, that I don't think you have to have a sheriff.
Right, it's just a question of how they're going to, and really the suggestion was to talk to him first, just to get his input.
right.
And to try to come up with the best solution. It's obviously is a tricky problem. We respect the work you're doing. And as a personal statement, I'm 100% in favor of the event. and hope to then I better be playing
You're
it.
gonna be in the band,
But-
I would hope
but
all
that's a
of you
personal
really wanted
statement.
you to As the select board
Yeah,
of the town of
that's-
Newfane, I
that
would love
would
to
be
have
fun.
you
The
all
select
be
board
a
meetings
part
or
of it.
something.
Yeah,
But it seems like it's what the sheriff, it's one of the things the sheriff's department does.
Yeah, they
When
would
need to
know,
track
be
and
knowledgeable. They would be
so when I speak to
knowledgeable.
them, I can say, the town
we
is in
suggested
support
that.
of this thing. I mean, this sounds like ask your mother, ask
Well,
your
you already
father.
have that from the previous.
Okay, then I can say you're in support.
We're in
Oh,
support
I
of
also,
this.
we thought to switch the time. Originally, we said 11 o'clock, but we're thinking there's the Buddhist Center that meets at 10 and the South Newfane Church that meets at 10. Those people would be getting out of their services around 11. You know,
Okay.
and if we were starting a parade at 11, we got a conflict there.
Okay.
So we're thinking to move the parade till noon, to start at noon. So just to clear the road for that. So I've talked to people about parking. Okay, I don't want to take any more of your time.
I
I will
appreciate
talk to
Great.
the sheriff.
Great.
Okay.
Great, thank
All
you.
right. And
Thank
start
you
thinking
very
about what float the select board is going to have in the parade.
Okay, thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Unscheduled members of the public. Do we have any unscheduled members of the public who would like wish to speak? Hearing none. New business. Is there any new business? And I believe I may have had an item to
I've
go.
got one thing
Okay, go ahead, Ted.
I'd like to bring up. Talking to George Friend a little bit, and he's pretty frustrated with the way the dog stuff is going, because he keeps getting constant interference. I think maybe what we should do in that case is put his, we need to talk to George first about putting his phone number on our recording, but it should be on the recording there somewhere, that if you need to ask me to do some animal control, dog, whatever, cat, rabbit, whatever it is, that he's the man to get a hold of first.
Well, maybe that is
We,
the.
we begged this guy to take this job, and he was ready to quit here a while ago, because there's been quite an interference with Gloria, from what you're telling me. So, I think it might be just as easy to have that, if he did it on recording, it would solve that problem, I think.
I guess, did you give any, for examples,
I didn't.
other than that one phone call?
All
Well,
right.
maybe the constable's name should be on the recording also. Constable
Or on the
and animal
website.
control.
You know, actually go on the website.
He's on the website.
Is he?
But, yeah, have it on the.
I don't know. I don't want to, I think the constable might be confusing to people. I mean, in that we have the sheriffs is
It's
really
the
our,
animal control.
it's really the animal control that we're really concerned with
Yep.
here. I think I don't see any reason why we couldn't have that on the machine.
We just want to make sure he's all right with giving us something.
If he's, yeah, well,
I'm assuming he is, because-
you didn't speak with him on that.
But it
I-
is,
no, I
it's,
didn't.
All right.
it's so confusing. I don't know. We just had an incident where we had no idea who to call or, you know, what to do about a, like almost dead fox in the driveway.
Oh.
You know, like what do you do? Who do you call?
Well, that's,
State police.
Well,
They're the game one. But then they,
is that
we did call the state police and they told us to call somebody else and we called the sheriff and.
Something like that, if you call George, he probably would come up. Probably good.
All right, I think it'd really be advisable to have that number, but we certainly have to have George's permission.
Right.
So, Shannon?
Look this way.
Oh, she went out.
yes.
When you listen to the tape, oh, we're not even on.
Oh,
Well, we'll have to watch the BCTV.
That's good.
That's good.
There'll be no minutes to the next meeting.
That'll be good. Well,
Here she
Shannon will
comes,
see
here
it.
she comes, John,
We'll start it from now.
Just starting
We're
the recording
restarting the
now.
recording.
Oh, well, I've been paying attention right up
All right.
until the point.
Okay. Yeah, Shannon's been here up to now, fortunately. Shannon, could you ask George Friend if it would be all right with him to put his phone number on the answering machine as the animal control officer?
Sure.
That's great, thank you.
and where, in terms of the listing, does he become first?
No, I would.
No, I mean,
No,
seriously.
I'm not being facetious
Can
and
I just finish this making a
You don't
statement?
have to be whatever. You can complete your statement. Go ahead.
It's just that many people get really frustrated when they listen to to extend it, they're not gonna listen to see that there's an animal control officer. So we have Shannon and me first, and then we go down through. So where in terms, if he agrees, do we want to place that on the message?
Well, being that he's not actually in this office, I mean, I don't see, I mean, you could say, you could have departments, you could say town office numbers are as follows, and the animal control number is such and such.
Well, and I'm sorry, but what I would say is if all those who work in the town, in town positions, including Gloria and Shannon and the listers, know that if it's an animal control question, to give George his phone number, you know, then even if it's last on the message and they didn't wait that long, if somebody calls you and then you realize, oh, it's an animal control, you just hand it over to George, wouldn't that work?
Oh, I hear that. That
Yeah.
doesn't put his number on the message, which seemed to be what was on the tape.
No, you're right. That is what it says. I'm just saying so what do people think? Is it, what do people think?
So right now, it's the town office, and
Listers.
Lister ZA,
It just goes by extension number. So we put Shannon first for
board
14,
numbers,
and then board numbers.
No.
four numbers.
Board
Numbers. So it's, extension 10,
What you
11,
could
12,
do-
13.
Town garage.
Uh-huh.
Is maybe shorten up that message
Yeah.
on road and road complaints to, shorten it up a little bit, contact 348 or whatever that number is, and for animal control officer, contact George Brand at 365. Just kind of consolidate that a little bit. Would that make sense to do that?
I'm asking the board.
Fine with me, I don't care how many,
Yeah.
If it's on the recording too, it might help people get stuff for the weekend who might not know who to get hold of either, so.
And so
Yes.
what I'm suggesting, and maybe we could somebody just put it as
Just
a
add it.
motion, just adding and.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the animal control officer's phone number, if he's agreeable to it, is added to another, it's the last new number that has been added to the list. Second, on the recording.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, onward.
Yeah, I have one other item
Sure.
for that, is that I attended a workshop on the invasive species of this Japanese knotwood, which is what's really coming over our highways, and Irene picked it up and it's spreading new material. And so I'm wondering, especially when we mow it, it just stays there and all of that's going to root and take off more and more. So I'm just wondering with mowing, if there could be some coordination with our Conservation Commission or concerned individuals. We know that the guy's going to go and mow and he's not going to pick that up, but if we had people who would say, if you're mowing this section, I will pick that. I mean, it's really incredibly invasive. And it's going to spread if you just try to pull some up. All you're doing is creating a whole new plant. It can go 50 feet in all directions. You break one piece off, it can go 50 feet in all directions. It goes down as far as 9 feet,
Is this what we are calling bamboo?
probably.
Okay.
And
Little
so
flower.
it has a beautiful flowering
Yeah.
scent, but it is invasive. And it will complicate things in terms of our floodplains, because it loves the water and it's going to put its roots down, but its very roots, it spreads by rhizomes. Its little roots are like little angel hair. And so it dies down, leaves go off in the winter, and then if there's any kind of emergency flooding, it's just going to tear the bank out because it does not provide roots like trees do.
So what do we do?
I would make a suggestion only because I do know this. My son, in the Career Center, maybe yours also, I don't know, probably to call Dennis Hamilton. I know that the Wyndham County Career Center sends, some of the classes out to go around areas in Brattleboro to try to eradicate it, and it's a really big deal to get this. I mean, they lay these things out on tarps,
Yeah, you can't,
and then you have to kill the plant in the sun because any little piece of it will root. And then there's some kind of a thing that they do to get way down to the 9 feet of those rhizomes. It's a hugely invasive species and something that I think actually should be addressed. But we're going to have to get some coordination on this because the whole problem with getting rid of it is it's a real hard job.
I
and
mean,
so
even
the,
this, okay.
there was a guy who did the workshop was hired by, I think, the Agency of Natural Resources. Only from April to September. He's only one person. He has a wealth of information. The TV was filming his last one, so we could maybe get a link and put it on. I put the brochure on the website, or I had Bauman do that. But I think, you know, the new, and it's the new growth that we can get rid of. And then we have to start looking at, you know, all of that on the back of Rick's Tavern and along our roadside, it's on Woodlaw Hill Road. I saw new growth coming up in somebody's field just after the Woodlaw Hill Bridge where they still have silt, new sprouts.
So,
what can we, you know, I'm just wondering what we can do. We do have a conservation committee. And I talked to Sylvia Kinney about her home is plagued with it. Just to bring it up for them and maybe get them to spearhead. Because we can be responsible as a select board when we have the mowing going on and try to get at least that so it doesn't grow more.
You just beat it down is what you're saying.
Well, no, once they cut it, that we pick it up and put it in the black bags and burn it.
The problem with it is I think that they use like rotary mowers now, they don't,
Right.
it's not a sickle bar, it's a rotary.
Which means it's spreading.
Well, it doesn't spread it very far, 'cause it keeps it within the thing of the mower.
So we could still pick up the pieces right at whatever, we just need, Newfane is just being infested.
that sounds like we need manpower.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
human power, so it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be men.
And training.
Weed kill, auto weed killer. I mean, I've got about 20, 30 stalks.
You can use,
Seems like round.
Round.
yeah, you can use something like that, but I would check that.
The state's
State.
raising 30 with it, and they don't have it.
But with anything that's next to a water source, absolutely no.
What happens is you have to kind of like drip it down in.
Because
You know, this is,
yes,
so it's a real arduous job.
Oh.
So
It doesn't always work well.
Right.
I just to move things along, do we have a thought on how we could move this a step further? Does anyone have a concrete suggestion of moving this?
I think that what we should do is maybe talk with the Conservation Committee or whatever board might be able to attack this and see what's happening in the state, see if there's things that are available. Like I said, I know Dennis Hamilton at the Wyndham County Career Center sends those students out, and that's part of what they do, is they go and they try to tackle areas, and he shows them how and why this is a problem. So, gee, maybe we could get more involvement with Leland and Gray students, but let the committee.
Is the Conservation Committee the appropriate committee for this task? So should we ask them to come to us, or should we simply ask them to communicate with Gloria and try to begin to come up with a plan? I'm asking the board, do you want to ask Gloria to talk to the Conservation Committee, or do you
Yes.
want them to come to us?
I don't necessarily think that they should come up with a plan. I think that the first stage will be for them to learn a little bit about it and find out what things might be available.
Okay.
Because we might not have a ready plan immediately.
No,
but we
okay.
can begin the stages of implementation.
Is that a
Yeah, yeah.
helpful?
And on the website, it's the brochure that basically, I mean, this guy was hired as the expert because they know it's so bad. And it's not a simple, absolutely not a simple procedure. So there is a pamphlet that you can print from the website now, and you can understand that you don't just try to upload it.
So certainly for the public, we want them to be aware that we have put that on the website. And Gloria, if you could speak with the Conservation Committee and see if they can, and make them aware of the resources that may be available to them that Chris mentioned. Okay?
And I have one more thing. Did this board ever send Joe Masha a thank you note for all of the work that he did for Gratis?
I don't remember, did we ask, was it asked that we do that? Did this come up, or is this a new? Are you just simply
I'm just
suggesting?
figuring it would be a nice
All right.
thing to do. He could have probably put in
Okay.
4 hours. We didn't build a.
Yeah, I think we certainly should. Shannon, could you send him a nice thank you?
I'll give you his address.
Okay, great, thank you. I actually have one piece of new business which is really kind of semi-new and old, which is we will be audited, of course, on all the flood repairs. And one of the requirements is that, you have to do an independent audit, and we always do an audit. There are some time we have to be careful that we don't, the audit report is due March 31st, 2013, but the period ending June 30th, 2012. So there's and we have previously had significant problems getting our town audits in. And I'd also add to that, since obviously this doesn't apply to us alone, but applies to all these towns, there may be yet more competition among. So I want to ask the board, how can we get our auditors to be responsive so that, number one, we make this deadline, and number two, what we really want it is by budget time, so that when we're sitting here trying to decide on a budget for the next year, we have an audited town.
Right.
This is something that's been brought up by Todd a number of times. I think it's very important. When I'm asking the board, what do you think is
Can
the
we
best
still
way?
have a contract with them?
I didn't sign any contract with them. What do
Just
you-
for next year?
What do we got?
Did we contract for
A year.
3 years? So the answer is yes, we are under contract.
So maybe we should have them email us at some point.
Shannon, have we ever asked them to come in nicely? Pretty pleased with sugar on it?
I never actually put sugar on it, but we have asked nicely.
We have asked nicely for them to come in, and they've just simply not done so, is that?
Right.
Did they kind of say, oh, yeah, sure, sometime, glad to, bye-bye, or they just said, no, we don't do that?
No, it's kind of like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, right.
Do you know, Shannon, if in the current annual report, I think it is, the amount budgeted for that auditing was 10,000, and it looks to me like we spent 15. Is that over the contract that we made?
it's an unfortunate budgeting snafu.
Yeah, we upped the budget for this
We
year.
did this
For this
time,
year.
and some
This-
of the
That was last year,
words,
but this year we upped the
sort of
budget
didn't
to the
match
reality.
what the bill was in, but we didn't want to up the budget.
But the real question is, how, that, at least what I'm posing now
They
is,
won't come and meet with us.
what,
Do
go
we
ahead.
have a contract?
We do have a contract, but that does, I don't know if that contract says they are required to come in and talk to us when we're,
Why don't we see
Let's
what
look
the
at the
contract
contract.
is? Why don't we
Okay,
ask
that's a good
them
idea.
next meeting,
Good idea.
get to see the
could
contract?
would I delegate that, which is would someone volunteer to examine that contract and
We'll examine
report
it.
back?
I'll examine it.
All right,
Fine,
so
I'll
let the
examine it.
record show that
Yeah.
Chris and Priscilla will examine the contract
Sure.
and get back to us, because I do think the sooner we start
Absolutely.
getting on their case to say we really
No,
want
that's, we need to write a letter to them saying that we
Yeah.
expect it done by this date
Yeah.
this year.
Exactly.
So we really have to try to push them.
They can't have contract with them.
Yeah, So the first thing I think is to examine the existing contract. Okay, thank you very much. That was that topic. Now we come to old business. The treasurer's answers to select board questions, and I'm a little unclear of whether I said we would get this copy. And so that it's sort of I think my aim was to take it and kind of reduce it and then make, because some of it is just copies of things that don't have marks on them, some of them do. And then get everyone a copy so you could look at what Maureen
Is there
said.
not a possibility of sometime talking to her,
Well,
not having these kind of answers? that-
well, since she's recovering from an
I know,
operation,
but
it does.
eventually,
Of course she would. She's
Before
always
budget time,
willing,
maybe?
she's always willing to come in and talk to us, especially if we give her the questions in advance. But she has, in fact, attempted to answer the questions.
So if you're gonna make copies.
I'll
take it up next meeting.
yeah, makes sense.
Were those the same, did I get a copy of those?
No,
Did we didn't?
I, of the questions or the answers?
No, the answer.
No, I'm saying
thought
I
we
have,
passed those over already. Okay.
not
we
these,
just
I
said
have
we were
these
going to.
copies, because
Okay.
I think what I realized, like, well, when I say I think I means Shannon in this case. Is to ask her to make copies so that everybody has an electronic copy and you can either print or not print, as the case may be. So I will do that.
Okay.
Okay. Next piece of, and we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting to actually talk about. Update on the hazard grant. I'm sorry, let me just interrupt myself to say, we will need an executive committee meeting after this meeting. I guess you're aware of it. We have reviewed, Chris and I reviewed the candidates. We need to talk about our next steps on that. So we will have to have a hopefully brief executive meeting after that. And also I did speak to our lawyers with both those pieces. The hazard mitigation grant program, is there an update?
There is, I also put it in my administrative assistance report. I'm not
It's
sure
right here.
You could do it now if you wish, and we can then not redo it when we get to the.
So it's a small update, but it is an update. I did receive a letter from Vermont Emergency Management apologizing for the delay. And then received an email saying they needed all the applications and all the documentation again. And apparently I wasn't the only town that called screaming and hollering because I got another email saying, oh, that's right, we told you we didn't need to do that. So, that's all right, you don't need to. So they're definitely working on it at least because they're asking questions.
Okay.
And then I got another email today saying site visits were rescheduled for July 25th.
Have all of have the homeowners been notified officially that they are being bought out?
They are not officially approved yet, so I will not officially tell them that.
Yeah, thank you.
Nothing like holding people hostage.
Emergency watershed protection program. Lauren?
I've received 4 of the Army Corps of Engineers for the 4 spring, spring projects. The one for Tony Fortino on Eddy Road seems to have come to some problem in that he filled in Awesome, anyway, he was there with another man and they were looking at it saying, oh, these plans don't really account for what needs to be done. So I have everything, questions and comments to Rob Allen. As soon as we receive the okay from Todd Meanies, we'll have permission to go on and get into the brooks. I still do not have their estimate for what they think their engineer plans will cost, but it's progressing slowly but surely.
Yeah, great. Next on the list is Lynch Bridge alternate project update, and I think really that The only update I have is one I'll need to cover in the executive session.
Excuse me, are you gonna do that tonight?
Tonight.
Okay, so I'll
Yes.
recuse out of that one.
Yeah, but I think what we probably do is, I don't know how we'll do it exactly, because for all the other stuff, you obviously
Right.
need to be there.
Okay.
The next item is the town office improvements. Is there any update?
They were gonna send to you and me, Chad. Did you receive anything?
No, not yet.
Which was an estimate of some sort or a
Estimate
plan?
for, and actually he thinks he may have come up with a plan on how to take care of the water in the basement,
Okay.
not take care of it, but
It says, who is the person?
Chad Farnham?
FARNUM from Farnham Insulation.
Okay,
Okay.
but you haven't received yet.
No, and he was going to do an estimate.
He came back was it last Thursday he was here?
Thursday,
think so.
somebody came back last
Yeah.
week.
And yeah, we actually asked him to come in and present a report to the
Okay.
select.
So, this is obviously something
And
important.
then there's additional, the Tom Laughlin has come in to see whether and what it would cost to actually repair these windows and restore them.
Okay. So that would be very useful
And
information.
we also get the money from the insurance company for the water in the basement,
Oh.
so that's in a line item from insurance claims. But just to let us know that we have about another 2,700 feet.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Any update on the wage analysis project? Although we already did have some fruits in a certain sense of that
In a sense, yes.
in relation to the.
I think Chris has been busy enough.
Well, no, actually, I have been working on it, and, we did have some fruits on it, as you said. I think that we probably could get together maybe after the 4th.
Good,
Yeah.
that's fine. We have some time, but we don't want to crunch it at the very end, but we do have some time. Excellent. Unfinished business
Can I
department.
just ask?
Yes.
Under, with the thing about the meeting for the, Sir Sosimo pit, is that old business?
You could bring, it is old business, yes.
Or do we know, or are we?
We're on the DRB, we discussed this, I thought, at the last meeting, in our last meeting, at the hearing meeting.
Okay,
That we
So
we
we're-
agreed that we would warn it as, because there may be 3 or more of us there, that we are aware that the DRB has requested that our presence
So this is
and
Sosimo.
for the
Well, I
Sir
guess the
Sosimo
one thing that I was going
and
to-
that Chris Williams also was requested his presence, and I asked Chris and as well as Shannon to make sure
He
Chris was aware
said
of
that
it.
he thinks he will be making.
Okay, okay.
well, I think they were hoping that you would
Ah,
be there.
yes, that's a very
Yes.
good, yes, because you weren't here
That's
for
what I
that.
was getting
I
ready
saw
to
the
go.
email.
Yeah, good,
David's
So-
email.
you're right. So,
Or I know you'll be there.
okay.
Something's up between them and like a grandson.
Oh,
I think they like
oh, cool.
grew there.
Okay.
This is an old business too. Where are we with easements for Maureen and the Gordons?
That's
Is that part of
also
the-
part of the executive review. Okay, I did, in fact. The Rock River Shack, there is an update? Is there an update? I just see, Shannon, is there a further update? We had one before that we.
No, there was one
Okay,
last week.
fine, I'm just,
I don't know.
cool, it's okay. All right, that brings us to the administrative assistance report. Shannon, would you like to emerge from your cocoon there?
No, not really.
Not really, I don't blame you.
Come on.
Can we go in?
And over here.
Okay, okay.
So,
Oh, yeah.
let's see, excess weight permits, I did give out 2 this week,
Okay,
one to Savage Trucking, 69,000 pounds, 90,000, and 99,000 pounds. The other one was to Fitzpatrick Transport for 69,000 pounds. We already went through the hazard mitigation, FEMA reimbursements.
seeing as how our state person was saying 5.5.
Yes, I just received another one today saying we
If
were
you could forward me to some of
97 and 3,
Great.
which was
Excellent,
terrific because I
excellent.
just finished updating the database to show the 95 and 5.
Good, well, all
That's
right.
lovely.
But still better,
News for the town.
more work, but better news.
Yeah, it was great.
Okay.
And I'll get that done just in time for them to say we'll cover the whole thing.
Good. That's okay too. I know you might not like the extra work, but I'll take the money.
Let's see, the dog fight hearing, the order and the minutes went out today to both parties with a copy going to the animal control officer. Bridge 14 bond, I just received all of the information that will be required to get that moving from the state today, so I'll compile that with what we have for information and get that to the attorney, move that forward. And during the regularly scheduled maintenance, my computer's hard drive failed its test. Basically, he said that means the hard drive could crash tomorrow, or next week, or next year, or never, but we don't know. So I did purchase an external hard drive for backup. So,
We should have that, and we should always have that. I'm surprised you guys didn't suggest it a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's
We
great.
can also go on.
I'm not sure, well, but meanwhile, what? What are you doing? Let's, we're not, let's, we don't have to, this one.
that's
That's enough.
And then Bridge 49, which we've already sort of discussed, but we did pay some money on that without realizing it.
Right.
So once Maureen gets back, we'll have to change
Good.
some line items around.
Right.
But
Good.
so far I've found 2 that we had paid. And I think that should be it.
Excellent.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Shannon.
I'm just a bit concerned, Shannon, when you said we need to do that. Is there a way that we make sure that it's flagged for your replacement? In other words, Maureen's not going to be back
Yes, she will.
in
We have
time
a
for
link
you to
together.
really.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just make sure I don't have anything other than the executive. I know in terms of correspondence, you've now received in your emails the correspondence that we've received, which in this case was pretty much limited. I think there were 2 pieces in the email, and I'm only seeing one right in front of me. One is just this information from VLCT. I'd like you to review it, and if you feel it should be brought to the board's, focus, I don't want to spend time on it. You all have the information. I believe there was a second one, which I think we already, I think was kind of old news, so I think we dealt with it. Shannon, I'm sorry, but what was do you remember what the other piece of correspondence was?
I didn't. It
Okay.
was just John Feifel's report for the emergency watershed protection for Benedetto. The
right.
requirement for the dye to go through.
Okay, great.
So it's on file.
Good, great. Excellent. That concludes the public portion of our meeting, and I would now accept a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Okay, and then what we'll do there is start with topics that Chris does not need to recuse herself and go the other way.
Well,
Unless
we
you'd
give
rather.
pay orders, right?
You have to, unfortunately, you're kind of.
Start with your lunch break,
You're
you want
gonna-
to take a break.
Okay, there you go.